A very good evening to everyone. This is your host, Uttam Prakash. Welcome to the 22nd edition of Reimagining Governance, Discourse for Excellence. It's my privilege to welcome the most noted personality, Shri Gurcharan Das. It's also my privilege to welcome senior officers from across the country, Shri Ashish Vij, member Central Board of Trustees, and all lovely audience who have been waiting for so long. Thank you so much. This evening, we explore a profound dilemma. What does it mean to be good? Our guest this evening has spent a lifetime thinking about this very question. My privilege once again to welcome Shri Gurcharan Das. Sir, as we all know, is one of India's most respected public intellectuals, a rare mind who has managed to bring moral philosophy out of the classroom and into everybody's life. Educated at Harvard, he went on to lead Procter & Gamble India as its CEO before deciding to leave corporate life and write full-time at the age of 50. We soon got the classic India Unbound. This was a landmark book on India's economic awakening, and that explained with unusual clarity how a nation rises when its people are set free to create. Years later, he took what he calls an academic holiday. Not like us, not to take rest, but to study, we all will be surprised, Sanskrit, to understand Mahabharata. And her mother cautioned him for his restlessness, saying, "This is the time for your vanaprastha." That journey of reflection became the difficulty of being good, where he turned the lens inward from markets to morality. He reminds us that dharma is not a rule book, it is a conversation, an inner dialogue about right and wrong in the face of life's confusions. And so, it is a real honor to welcome Gurcharan Das, a mind as sharp as it is human. He reminds us again that the hardest part of doing good is not knowing what is right. Rather, it is about finding the courage to live it. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's our rare and real privilege. Before we proceed further, may I request Sri Manish Nayyar, who is present at your place, to formally felicitate you, sir. And it is a token of our deep respect and appreciation for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
We can't hear the applause, sir, on the screen because everyone is muted. So please consider it as an applause and a standing ovation from all the officers across the country. Thank you so much for accepting our humble gesture with such a grace and without asking for a performance appraisal. May I now invite Shri Kumar Rohit, Director of the Pandit Deendayal Upadhyaya National Academy of Social Security, for his welcome address. Sir, most welcome.
Thank you, Uttam. Respected CPFC sir, Sri Gurcharan Das ji, and my dear colleagues, we have joined from all corners of the country today. It is both a privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to the 22nd edition of Reimagining Governance, Discourse for Excellence, our flagship platform for reflection, dialogue, and inspiration With its root in Good Governance Day 2023, this series has, over the past 2 years, grown into a space where ideas meet action. The conversations here have visible footprints where it was training module on compassion in governance after Kailash Satyarthi's session, a renowned focus on health and well-being following Dr. Devi Setty's talk, or process reform and agility inspired by Sri Sanjeev Sanyal's insights. Each dialogue has moved beyond reflection to renewal, and today's discussion carries that same spirit forward. We are deeply honored to host Sri Gurcharan Ji, a thinker who has made philosophy accessible to everyday life. Through works like The Difficulty of Being Good, he has shown that questions of dharma are not relics of mythology, but daily tests for judgment, honesty, and courage. His writing compels us to look inward and to ask not only what we do, but why we do. For those of us in public service, that reflection is essential. Governance, after all, is not only about policy or process, but also a moral practice. Every file, every signature, every decision hides a quiet moral choice to act fairly, to listen with humility, to balance rule with reason. At the Academy, our role is to prepare officers not only for administration, but for awareness, to pair skill with sensibility. The difficulty of being good reminds us that goodness in governance is an ornament, but it is the foundation. Sri Gurcharan Ji, your presence today reminds us that ethics need not be abstract. It can be lived, spoken, and practiced. The way we think, decide, and serve. On behalf of PDUNASS and the EPFO family nationwide, I extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to you, sir. We look forward to an evening that will make us think deeply, question kindly, and perhaps act a little more wisely. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you so much, sir. The Academy has always been a place where reflections lead to reform and where ideas don't just stay on paper, as you rightly pointed out, they travel into policy. Thank you for those thoughtful reflections. A reminder that governance, like dharma, needs wisdom and a good Wi Fi connection. May I now invite our Central Provident Fund Commissioner, Sri Ramesh Krishnamurthy, to welcome our esteemed guests and address us, please.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Sri Gurcharan Das. I thank PDUNASS for hosting this 22nd edition of Reimagining Governance, Discourse for Excellence. And today's topic, I think, is extremely critical. As Kumar Rohit already explained, I think this process of engaging with eminent personalities is extremely important for EPFO. Their thoughts, their wisdom, and their experience sharing, I think, continuously reinforces the good in us and ensures that we think along those lines. So today's topic, I think, is extremely relevant. The difficulty of being good. I think everyone accepts that we have to be good, particularly in EPFO when we straddle public service with financial prudence. I think it's a fine balance between what is that we can do when we are doing good, but at the same time we have to also make sure that we are absolutely correct in terms of financial propriety, in terms of what the rules tell us, what are the rights and responsibilities. So this fine balance, I think, will be enriched by Mr. Gurcharan Das, I think, who's again straddled both the corporate world and also, I would say that in his avatar as a public speaker on ethics, good governance, compassion, excellence. I think we all would be very, very benefited from his words of wisdom today. So with these, I again welcome Sri Gurcharan Das and hope that our entire comrades and friends at EPFO benefit from your advice and wisdom. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, sir. Under your leadership, EPFO continues to show that governance is not just about systems, but about the trust that sustains them, and perhaps the occasional reminder email that keeps them running. In my excitement to welcome Gurucharan sir, I have forgotten welcoming you, sir. So please forgive me. Thank you so much for understanding. And now it's my privilege to invite Gurucharan sir, author, philosopher, and one of India's most enduring moral voices, for the keynote address. All ears to you, sir. The floor is yours, because in India Unbound, you wrote about India's economic liberation. In the difficulty of being good, you ask deeper questions. And we are privileged to have you with us today. And we are keen to understand why the real battlefield is not Kurukshetra, but the human heart. The floor is all yours, sir. Most welcome.
Thank you, Uttam. I'm welcome to my home. To all the EPFO people who are online, and I'm Gurcharan Das, but my name was not all. My name used to be Ashok Kumar until the age of 4, when my grandmother discovered. She suspected that my mother had given me that name because she thought my mother was secretly in love with a Bollywood actor named Ashok Kumar. Now, I don't know, you're young people, but you may not remember that Ashok Kumar in the 1940s was a combination of Amitabh Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan. So, big deal. But she didn't think that name was appropriate. So she took me to her guru. She placed me at his feet and she told the guru, Guruji enu na deo, give this boy a name. And she placed me at his feet and she said, Acha, BBA, tu othe paya hai, enu bulavange Guru Charan Das. So overnight, I was transformed from the Prince of Happiness, Ashok Kumar, to the humble servant of the feet of the Guru. And when I grew up, I went to the Guru and I asked him, why did you give me that name? And he said, son, it's a good idea to be reminded about humility in life. And then he gave me the very best definition of humility that I have heard. And frankly, it is perhaps the most important characteristic of successful leaders, whether in business or politics or wherever. And his definition was, take your work seriously, but not yourself seriously. And this also became, a couple of years ago, I wrote my memoir, Another Sort of Freedom. And the dedication to this memoir is to the happy few who don't take themselves seriously. And so I think that's a central moral idea as well, which has been a part of my life. Excuse me, please don't move around. It disturbs me. Sorry. There was too much action going on around here. So I was trying to tell you how I was named. And so, yes, I've written a book, The Difficulty of Being Good. And this is a book which interrogates the Mahabharata, and its premise or one of its major lessons is that an act of goodness is one of the most valuable things that human beings possess. I also come from a family of government servants. My father was an engineer. My uncles all worked in different sections of the government. I'm the first in my family who worked in the private sector. And recently, a friend came home, a friend of the family came home. He was a joint secretary in the central government, in an important role. And he said something to me. He said this, he said, my father, he says, my son doesn't want to sit for the IAS exam. I'm telling him that that's the best thing for him. But he says to me, Dad, look at you. You work 12 to 14 hours a day. You keep the department afloat. You keep the country moving. And look at your neighbor. He's in the same batch as you are. And he spends 2 to 3 hours a day working and the rest of the day politicking. Both of you will get promoted on the same day because of the seniority system in the government. But he may well land a more important promotion, a prize job, because of his networking. Well, you can imagine that I felt sick hearing this, and story. But I offer these thoughts to you as a preliminary, not because I don't respect you. I respect you. I think a lot of you do. I'm sure work very hard and you produce very good results. But there is obviously room for improvement. Now, coming back to the difficulty of being good, it interrogates, as I said, the Mahabharata. And Mahabharata began as a war epic, but it ended as an anti-war epic. As you may remember, everybody died in the end. A few Pandavas were left, and frankly, what began, Mahabharata went through 3 phases over 400-500 years. The first rendition of the Mahabharata was in 400 BC, around just after the Buddha. And it was called Jaya. It was a Kshatriya epic. It was a epic to give Josh to the warriors to fight. It was only 8,000 verses. The second rendition of Mahabharata took place around 200 BC, just at the end of the Mauryan Empire. And it was called Bharata. And it got expanded to about 20,000 verses. And here, Krishna, who had been a friend of the Pandavas is already a minor deity, a Kul Deva. He is Vasudeva. And then another 200-300 years later comes the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata is now 100,000 verses. Now it includes the Gita. So there's a Vaishnava influence in it, but also Buddhist influence, especially in the character of Yudhishthira, who says at the end of the war, this victory feels like defeat. And now the Pandavas have to rule over almost an empty kingdom, a kingdom of widows. And at the end, when they rule for 30-35 years, Yudhishthira is going to heaven. He's walking to heaven, and on the way, a dog gets attached to him in the bazaar as he's going up to heaven. And they walk, both of them together. And when they reach the gates of heaven, Indra, the god of heaven, comes out and he says, "Welcome, great king." And he says, "We have been waiting for this moment to welcome you." And Yudhishthira looks at the dog and he says, "Can he come in?" And Indra says, "No, no dogs allowed in heaven." And Yudhishthira thinks, what kind of a place is this heaven? And this God of heaven, who doesn't understand that this poor dog has no one to, we are not on the earth, we're up there somewhere. And who will look after him when I'm not there? And so Yudhishthira says, "No, I'm not coming in." Now, I don't know how many people, how many people you know would do something like this. But this is what Yudhishthira was like. And that's why they say that his ultimate message of Yudhishthira ultimately is about act of goodness. The act of goodness to a dog. And that's the word in Sanskrit is Anrishamsya. You all know Himsa, which is of course Yudhishthira's key word also. But Anrishamsya means compassion, to an act of goodness, to help somebody else, to put yourself in somebody else's shoe. And so sometimes for you distinguished officers and staff, you might also think that the person who's come to ask you, put yourself in the shoes of that person. That person needs help. And think of Yudhishthira, who was even worried about a dog who's supposed to be unclean. Anyway, I've read some of the questions that were asked to me, and one of the questions was probably about the most original thought in the Gita, which I said is in the Mahabharata, and that is in terms of action. We've all heard of it, but it's not very easy to practice, and that's the notion of Nishkam Karma that Krishna teaches to Arjuna, that you act for the sake of the action and not for the personal reward. You know, this is sometimes translated that you act for the action rather than for the consequence of the action. No, we all have to care about the consequence of the action. I mean, if you're sitting down to take an exam, you want to pass the exam, right? So it's not the consequence. If you get too obsessed with the consequences of your personal reward. Oh, if I get past this exam, maybe I will get this promotion, etc., etc. That is what will distract you. And that's what Krishna means in this famous Karmanye Vadika Raste, Mahapaleshu Kadachana. So this is one of the most original ideas, I think, in the Gita and the Mahabharata. And it is also a theme that we can discuss as we go along. Now, let me check our time. Yes, I've spoken to you for 6 minutes, and now it's time. What I will do, I think, instead of giving you general talks about general ideas about the Mahabharata, I'd like to tell you a story, and it's a true story of a person when I was running Procter and Gamble in Bombay. This young man came to work as a night guard. He came to work from 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning. That was his shift. He came from Akola. He was a villager. He didn't know any English. This was his first visit to Bombay, and he was excited like a child. Everything he saw was something like a child, you know. He saw the coffee making machine the first day. And then he wanted to see how it worked. And he fiddled around with it. And then he started serving trial coffee to others. So it's like a, you know, like a kid. If it's when it's raining, all the adults go around. There's a puddle on the street, and adults go around avoiding the puddle, making sure their clothes don't get wet. What does a child do? He jumps into the puddle. And why? Because he wants to know what it feels like. Anyway, that was this guy named Kamlay. Kamlay was, as I said, a real dehati. Even he could not pronounce the name of the company. Our company was Procter and Gamble. He say Procter and Gamble, you know, for our company. But there was something very special about him. In a few days, he discovered the telex machine. Now, he wanted to send a telex message, but he didn't know any English. So he goes the next day and finds an English-speaking little shop where they teach English. And while others in the night shift are sleeping, and this guy is learning English. And within 4 or 5 months, he actually learns enough English to start sending trial telex messages on the telex machine. So, but the quality about him that I think everybody noticed was that he had a manner which was basically helpful. Anybody asked him something, अरे पानी ले दोगे? कामले पानी ले आएगा. अच्छा बताओ वो कहाँ हैं? So he'll go and find out who you're looking for. And and one day somebody in the office collapsed. He must have had some medical problem. And you know, it was amazing. Kamlay, who was from the Kola district, but he took charge, and by then he knew the numbers on the telephone switchboard, etc. He called the doctor. He he put a pillow behind the person, and he really just took charge. And then he went to the chemist shop to bring the medicine. And the fellow revived. And then he tells everybody, please don't tell anybody that I was the person who was helping out. Now, so he was a self-effacing. He didn't want, he didn't care who got the credit. That was the quality. And that's why I think he was a bit of a Nishkam Karmi. That he did the action because it was his duty to do it, he felt. In the same way, a few months later, one of the officers dropped his wallet near the men's toilet. And Kamlay found it on his rounds as a security guard. And he came to me and he said, sir, there's a lot of money in this wallet. And this man must be missing this money. His ID card was there. So he says, look, this is the person. He was a senior officer in the company. He lived in Bandra and his address was there. And Kamlay told me, now you be the security guard for 1 hour. I'll take a taxi, give me 20 rupees to go and come back, and I will deliver this wallet to this person. And so that's what he did. And it so happened that that officer, Kamlay arrived just in time because that officer had taken out the money from his bank that afternoon to pay the down payment. It was in lakhs of rupees for a flat that he was buying in Bandra, in Bombay. And his wife and the man, when they realized, I mean, they were so grateful to Kamlay. But Kamlay told them not to tell anybody. And he came back and he said, now I'll take over the duties of night guard from you. And and also told me not to talk about it. So I'm just coming out of a cold. You'll have to excuse me. A few months later, our telephone operator in the daytime, she was going on maternity leave. She was having a baby. And so Kamlay went to the head of personnel and he said to him, look, I'm tired of working at night. Give me a chance to be your temporary telephone operator. And when she comes back to the job, I'll go back to my night shift. And the personnel had said, Kamlay, look, we are a multinational company operating in 135 countries. We get phone calls from all around the world. And you don't know English. And how will you answer the switchboard? And Kamlay understood. And with a long face, he went away. But I heard about this from the grapevine. And so I went to the personnel guy and I said, give him a chance. Let's try him out for a couple of days. He's been studying English and let's see kya hota hai. In meantime, have a backup ready if in case Kamlay doesn't make it. So Kamlay then I found him sitting in the booth of the telephone operator. In those days, you know, those telephone operators things. And that very afternoon, I got a phone call from our lawyer, who is Mr. Shah of Crawford Bailey. And he says to me, Gurcharan, have you got a new EPBX system? I said, no. He said, well, you know, in the past, when I called your office, my phone was always answered on the 4th, the 5th, or the 6th ring. But today I called your office several times in the morning And it was immediately answered in the second ring. So then I told myself, this new EPBX system must be Kamlay. And so at lunchtime, I mean, in the evening when I'm going home, I stopped at Kamlay's telephone booth and I asked Kamlay, why do you answer the phone so quickly? And he gave me the best answer in the world. Not even our marketing director or finance director would have given such an answer. He said, sir, there may be a customer calling for an order. You lose an order to your competition. I said, that's right. Kamlay had understood that his salary was paid not by the company, but by the customers of the company. And he knew why the company existed. And here was a man who was metric pass, no MBA. We only had English-speaking MBAs and all these multinational managers. And this fellow had understood the heart of the business. Anyway, the story has a good ending because company immediately saw that this guy was very special. And so we gave him the opportunity to go and work in different parts of the company. We gave him, he took formal lessons in English also, and any other courses he wanted. But he didn't need any courses. He didn't want any courses because he had something. Every department that he worked in, suddenly he infected them with his spirit, the spirit of working for the love of the work. Working, in other words, I think Kamlay would have paid us money to come to work, if you ask me. He loved his work so much. And that helpful attitude, everybody in the department learned something. That if you are helpful to others, they will be helpful to you. So the overall, as soon as he entered a new department, the overall standard of performance in that department improved. Anyway, enough said about him, but he kept getting promoted and promoted until he ended up as a director of the company. Now here's a man from a village, metric pass, no knowledge of English. This is how he could rise in a company because of the sheer quality of his personality. And ultimately, what the lesson, why he is a kind of hero of mine, is that the lesson is that what matters at work is not credentials, MBA, or whatever. It is not even your sort of skills that you have. It's not even your intelligence. It's ultimately your attitude. The best leaders have that attitude. They have that attitude that Kamlay had. Curiosity. They have a sense of they love their work. You know, I've always believed the secret of happiness is to love the work you do and to love the person you live with. One line definition of happiness. Now that's what Kamlay, I think, represented as a kind of model. And so this sort of attitude, he had a basic bias, the helpful attitude, a bias for service to others, a bias for action. It was not words. He was a man of few words. And he ultimately, what he taught me was that execution is more important than even strategy. Everybody can have a strategy. Every company can have a strategy. But companies that execute that strategy are the ones who are winners. And so I think this applies also to government. If you're working in the government and to EPFO, that maybe your incentive system may not be exactly the same, but nevertheless, the things that Kamlay did in his career, ultimately, he was rewarded. He was rewarded. And you don't have to end up as a director. He was rewarded every day when he walked home from the office. And so I want to leave this thought for those of you who are in HRD or in personnel department. One thing you can learn from Kamlay is that when you recruit people, or in the UPSC, when they recruit people, they ask questions about what you know. That doesn't matter what you know. Check the attitude of the person. Is he a Kamlay? Is she a Kamlay? That's what matters. And so I would say recruit for attitude. If you want to bring somebody in your department, look for attitude when you bring somebody in your department. So that's really the bottom line of my talk. And frankly, I would just say now, why don't we open up to questions, Uttam? I promised about 15-20 minutes for questions, and I think I have given them the 15-20 minutes that you wanted.
Thank you so much, sir, for that deeply stirring address and for giving this evening both insight and grace. You began by saying what you had heard about EPFO, words like unresponsive, corrupt, non-helpful. Frankly speaking, they may sting, as you rightly said, but I feel they must be seen in perspective. Sometimes the mirror that hurts a little is the one that helps us grow. And your story of Kamble will stay with us, sir. The man who showed that it isn't about intelligence, but attitude that makes the difference. His curiosity, his love for the work he did, and the people he served, that was his secret of happiness, which you have coined it so well. And I'm truly blessed by the thought that a bias for action, a bias for service is greatness in itself. And execution matters more than strategy. That also will stay with us. Thank you, sir, for reminding us that while rules guide our actions, it is conscience and the love of honest work that gives them the meaning. So, as you said, sir, we would like to go for the questions, and I will begin with the first few ones, sir. Some of them have been updated right now, but still I'll try, sir. And I promise to the audience that this part won't be as difficult as being good. So this is Mr. Ramesh Nair. He comes from Kochi, and he says a very profound question. Who really decides, or who really gets to decide what it means to be good? And in the same vein, Mr. Sanjeev Singh from Bareilly says, how can ethical reasoning help public servants stay anchored when decisions are complex, ambiguous, and under pressure? So,
Okay, who first is who decides what is good?
Right.
Well, that's what I like about our Hinduism, that we don't have a God who gives us 10 commandments. Because reality is that every situation is different. And it's not easy to decide this. but it is ultimately the individual who's faced with this. What a discussion like this can help is to improve our moral compass inside us. And most of us have an idea. There are certain things, and all religions talk about the same thing, that hurting others, ahimsa, is hurting others is not good. Uh, Telling the truth is a good thing, satya, and and so on. But the situations are complex. I'll give you an example. And sometimes our moral duties conflict. Uh, some years ago, in fact, when I was writing The Difficulty of Being Good, there was a report in the Times of India about a child who was drowning on a beach in Goa. And a young man jumped in and saved the child. So the reporter from Times of India goes to this man and she says to him, "You're a hero. Why did you do it?" And the boy sheepishly it confesses to her that, he says, "We are a college party from Hindu college in Delhi. And frankly, I was trying to impress a girl in our group. And that's why I jumped in." So this the reporter says, "But then you're not a hero." But I said, "She's wrong. The child was saved. The heroic deed was done. Why does it matter if he's trying to impress his girlfriend?" So in the same way, a lot of people say, "Oh, this chap Lalit Modi, the one who created IPL. Now he was a bit of a crook, and he made some money, and then he skipped the country and ran away." And people say, "Oh my God, what a crook!" And what I say is balance what he achieved. After all, look at the fact that 1 billion people's hearts get such joy watching cricket for 2 months in a year, and they're heroes. It has created so many cricketing heroes from our country, made our country from last to the first in the world. And so there are many, even the franchisees have made money, the advertisers do well, BCCI does well, everybody does well. And so in a public situation, when you're judging a person in public life, there you have to apply Raj Dharma. Raj Dharma means that what you do should be benefiting the people. Doesn't matter what your motives are. You should benefit the people. That is public action. That's how we judge a public deed. Now, there's another story in the Mahabharata. Rishi Kaushik, he's supposed to be a very great man who has never told a lie. And everybody in the town knows it. He sits in the town square and he sees a young man run past, and he knows what's happening because 7 people are running after him. And he knows that those 7 people they're crooks. They have committed a crime, and he has seen the crime. He's a witness who is running away. And so they ask him, "Are Rishi, wo kahan gaya?" तो कहते हैं वहां गया. And that man is caught, they catch him, they kill him. And then Rishi Kaushik ends up in hell. And he asks the hell keeper, "Why am I in hell? I was such an honest man." And the hell keeper tells him, "That day Your duty was to save the life of that man and not to tell the truth. So therefore, that's why they say, Bhishma says in the Mahabharata, that dharma is sukshma, dharma is subtle. So we have to discuss it. So this is a long answer to your question from Cochin. I think you go from Kerala, Mr. Nair, I think is your name. Now, the other question, frankly, is the question that I've been trying to answer, that in all these problems of the day, ultimately, look, we are born one day, we die another day. We don't know when we'll be born, when we'll die. In between, we have a little time. And whether you are a prime minister of the country, or whether you are a person who walks on the road carrying somebody's luggage, you have to decide what you want to be remembered for. People forget prime ministers. People have short memories. Each person at the end gives his own account, leaves his own account. So you, whether you are in the middle of a lot of complicated discussions and all that, but if you have the right sense of doing the right thing, if somebody comes to you to help, then it's your responsibility to help that person. Of course, I sympathize with you in EPFO. Your rules are so complicated and so wrong in many cases that ultimately I think the reform, I'm glad EPFO has had some reforms and they are good reforms, but you should be aiming, your reforms at the next stage should aim to take out discretion completely from your lives and make life easy. Today, technology allows income tax to be faceless assessment. You know, since faceless assessment came in income tax, I have not had me or my CA. He has not seen the face of an income tax officer for the last 7 years. And before that, there was always somebody with his hand out to get you. So that is where, frankly, auto claim settlement should be the mantra. Online settlement. Minimum discretion. Rules should be clear and open. The money belongs to the salary of the person. The person has the first right to decide what to do with that money. That's what I like about the reforms also now. Ultimately, the reform in EPFO should be based on the lifetime Aadhaar-linked portability of social security account. When you change your job, whether you're working in an MSME or in a big company or even as a gig worker, you should be able to carry that portability, carry that account with you from one place to the next. The beauty is that technology now allows us to do it. Use technology. Use AI. It has everything. When I get into a problem, I use AI. I use ChatGPT. And she gives me a very good answer. Enough to make my life easy. And so I also feel that there should be customs, in our company, we had the most important thing we did was we did a customer satisfaction data we collected. And this is now again very easy. If everything is online, you can easily say, like WhatsApp, tell us good, bad, poor. Simple, press this. the customer can do that. So important thing, trust the customer. And it is her money. And she should choose whether she wants NPS or EPFO. And don't say we are there to protect her from herself. That's wrong moral logic. So looking at India at 100, 2047, we ultimately, the job of the country, we are one of the fastest growing economies in India, but we have not created the jobs that the fastest growing economy should have created. That is because we have been let down by manufacturing. We have not created an industrial revolution. Our exports of manufactured goods are less than 2% of world export. We have to fix that. And that will be the route to prosperity. Okay, long answer.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much, sir. The next question is from one of our Central Board of Trustees members, a respected figure, sir, Mr. Ashish Vij. He says, in fact, he picks up from the book of one of our previous RGDE speakers, Mr. Anil Swarup. In the ethical dilemmas of civil servant, he says, he writes as, the ethical challenges lies in the gray area between legal and illegal, between yes and no, where both choices seems defensible. Right or wrong often depends on personal values, but the real test is whether one's conscience is at peace. So this is what Mr. Swarup writes, but his question is, how does one build that moral inner compass that guides ethical choices amidst the moral gray zones? And the
Well,
second question, something similar to this, which you just spoke about, technology and improvement of thought processes in EPFO. A quick question which has come just now is, they say that, sir, in the last financial year, there were around 18 million, yeah, if I'm reading it correctly, 18 million. Yeah, 18 million. 1.8 million, sorry, 1.8 million grievances out of which 98% were resolved within time. The 2% we couldn't resolve, and they are the ones who are giving impressions the other way around. How do we manage this?
Okay, you got two very different questions. The first question, I applaud what the questioner has said. I think the questioner has answered his own question very well, because the fact is that human beings are flawed, and there is a gray area between the legal and the right thing to do. And the important thing is to really go by one's gut instinct. I mean, obviously, I'm not asking you to break the law. We must do things illegally. That's why I think I'm so glad that you had Sanjeev Sanyal, because he's doing the kind of reforms, the process reforms that EPF also could benefit from. And so I think you should make Sanjeev Sanyal your friend and give him a case studies of things that processes that can be improved in EPFO. And I would just say, ultimately, sometimes the law is also bad, is wrong. And I won't, we don't have the time, the luxury of time for me to give you another story. But if you ask me, my moral compass was created by my grandmother. You know, she used to tell me stories from the Mahabharata, and that's where I got a sense of right and wrong. And what is good about the Mahabharata is that it's about us, human beings, meaning that the characters in the Mahabharata the good guys do bad things and the bad guys do good things. You know, that's what human beings are. And, you know, I mean, unlike the Ramayana, where everybody is perfect, hero is perfect, wife of the hero is perfect, even the villain, Ravana, is perfect. So, Mahabharata is the right place to improve your moral compass, if you will. And it is really through these interactions, stories, that we improve our moral compass as we think about it. Life is gray. Life is gray, and there's no quick answer. The more you think about these things, the better. But I would go by my gut instinct when I'm faced with the kind of dilemmas that you're talking about. Okay, now the second question, by now I had forgotten. That was about, what was that?
It was about saying, sir, that last financial year we had around 1.7 million grievances,
Oh, yeah,
out
yeah,
of
yeah.
which
Only 2%.
yeah,
Got
only
it, got
2%
it.
is.
Yeah, but you know, people remember the 2%, unfortunately. The newspapers report the 2%. They don't report the 98%, unfortunately. So I myself, I was very surprised that I got this negative feedback because it wasn't 2%. It was much higher than but mine was a very small sample of maybe a dozen people. All I can say is that, you know, just remember Kamlay and and your work itself will be more pleasurable if you think that if you're helpful. If you're helpful, you'll find people will be helpful to you. That's what I have found. You smile at the world smiles back at you. It's in your own interest.
Sir, thank you so much. I'll just take 2 to 3 minutes more, sir, because I'm tempted to take these questions from the officers who have taken so much of time. One question, the sense of it I'm putting, sir. This is from Akshay Wag from Hubli, Srijit from Telangana, Suguna from Madurai, and NSN Prasad from Kochi. They say, sometimes following the rule feels wrong, and helping someone means bending it. What is the right balance between being fair to people and faithful to procedure?
Yeah. Well, you know, this is a very, it's a variant on what we were discussing earlier. That I'm sorry to say, but rules, especially bureaucratic rules, unfortunately are often wrong. They're based on distrust. And our civil service is a colonial civil service. We have never reformed the civil service. That civil service was of the British, who distrusted us as Indians. And one of the first things, you know, it's ironical that UK has reformed its civil service after Margaret Thatcher. When she did the economic reforms, she also did the administrative, the governance reforms. Deng Xiaoping in China, he reformed the civil service when he was doing his economic reform. He changed the incentive system. How many jobs you create, how many production you have in your district. Those were the incentives that were given for promotion. So I think all of you should clamor for a change in processes, change in these things. Yes, you're put in an impossible position, whether you must break a rule to help somebody. That is wrong. But if you treat your gut instinct right, and you note down that, look, I'm bending the rule because I believe the person. Just say that. I may be wrong. I'm ready to be punished for that. But I believe that person, and this rule is stupid. Say that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Sorry, were you saying something, sir?
No, I'm
Okay.
done. I'm
Okay.
afraid I have not given you more time for asking questions because my answers
I
turned
know,
out to
sir.
be longer than we had expected.
Much appreciate, sir. But again, forgive me, this is the last question. This is from one Mr. Kamlay from Aizawl. He says, how can officers develop the ability to see human side of every decision? Is there a character from Mahabharata that can guide us in this area in making ethical choices?
Every character from the Mahabharata has something to teach you. What Karna teaches you is that your mother is not the one who gives birth to you, but the one who brings you up. Remember when Kunti went to Karan and said, now you switch sides? Because you are a Pandava and you don't know it. And she tells him the story of how he was born, and she put him in a basket and he floated down the river and he was picked up by a charioteer, a Suta, and you grew up as a Suta Putra. You are the eldest, you'll be the king, you'll be the emperor. And he doesn't switch sides. Now that is one lesson from Karna, that a sense of loyalty to who brings you up, not just gives you birth. Then Draupadi, my God, she is the power behind the war. The whole war takes place because she's driving the war. Now a woman who has the guts to take on the might of the state and push the Pandavas in that direction. Yudhishthir, who says, I act because I must. An epitome of doing the right thing. I act because I must. So every character, similarly, that there are many dilemmas right through. And you don't have to read the whole big Mahabharata. In fact, in the beginning of my book, I have a summary of the central story, which I then illustrate onwards in the difficulty of being good. But there are many abridged versions, and they are full of these. It's a good lesson for anyone to have to take.
Thank you so much, sir. The last line which I can take this evening is, goodness is not easy, but the struggle to be good is what makes life meaningful. And with this thought, let me thank the audience who has been here all the round and able to make the best possible in the limited time we had with you, sir. It was a truly enriching session and most satisfying. I wish may we all return to our Kurukshetra tomorrow, hopefully a little wiser and maybe even little better. Thank you so much, sir. I thank Director of the National Academy. I thank our Central Provident Fund Commissioner, Mr. Krishnamurthy. I thank everybody in my team who has made this possible, including Mr. Manish Nair, who has been at your place and has been so kind to help me felicitate you, sir. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. And thank you, audience. See you again next month.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.